Welcome to our channel, sci-fi lovers. Today, we've got a pulse-pounding tale for you. Shackles of the Sun, the Slavebreaker of Solaris 9. Imagine you're Elijah Graves, an astronaut stranded on an alien planet, forced into brutal gladiator battles by the merciless Valkyrie Dominion. But here's the twist. Just when escape seems impossible, the Dominion's own champion, the fierce warrior Karen, suddenly betrays her own people to save Elijah, sparking an epic rebellion. How did this happen? Why would a powerful alien warrior defy her entire civilization for a human prisoner? And does Elijah finally find freedom? Or is there a greater price to pay? Stay tuned till the end, because the final showdown is going to blow your mind. And remember, if you love epic sci-fi adventures, hit the subscribe button right now to support us and catch more thrilling stories every week. Don't forget to leave a comment below telling us your thoughts about Elijah and Karen, and let us know where you're listening from. Now sit back, relax, and dive into the world of Solaris 9. Chapter 1, A Prisoner on Solaris 9. The cargo hold Elijah awoke in was a makeshift detention area, metal bars grafted onto bulkheads, flickering luminescent rods overhead, and vents spewing sweltering air. His arms and legs were shackled to a corner post. Beside him, huddled in fear, was a thin creature with mottled blue skin and a hunched spine. It kept whispering something in a language Elijah couldn't parse. Elijah tested his chain. He'd seen NASA-grade shackles once or twice in training, but these were organic metal, as though some alien biotech had grown the links. They clinked heavily against each other, offering no give. A loud klaxon sounded. Overhead, an intercom blared in Valkyrie speech. The other prisoners scrambled to attention as best they could. Suddenly, the entire cargo hold jolted, making Elijah's stomach lurch. It felt like the gravity shifted. "We're moving," he muttered, more to himself than to his fellow captives. "Moving to the Citadel," a raspy voice said. Elijah turned to see that the hunched alien had spoken, somehow in English, albeit broken. "All new catches go, sold in public market or thrown in arena." He swallowed hard. "You speak English?" "Learned from Terran merchant, many years. Not perfect?" The alien's watery eyes flickered with caution. "Name is Tal. You?" "Elijah Graves," he replied softly. "Then be ready, Elijah Graves. The Citadel tests new slaves by forcing them to fight. If you fail, they kill you. If you succeed, your fate is uncertain." Elijah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the scorching heat of Solaris 9. Fight? He'd done some basic combat training as an astronaut, but not for lethal games. And against aliens armed with cosmic technology? That was a nightmare scenario. The hold jolted again. Then the cargo bay door hissed open, revealing a corridor lit by pulses of sickly green lights. Valkyrie guards with spiked helmets poured in. Their faces had an unsettling calmness as they pointed spears at the prisoners. "Out!" one barked in a commanding tone. Tal cast Elijah a fearful glance, then shuffled forward, clinking chains along the metal ramp. Elijah followed, every step weighed down by dread. They stepped out into an immense docking bay. Elijah caught glimpses of massive starships, crates full of weapons and robed figures who might have been buyers or overseers. The air stung with an acrid, sulfuric scent. "Move along, pit rat," a guard spat, prodding Elijah with a spear tip. He resisted the urge to strike back. NASA training told him to stay calm, gather intel. He was too disoriented to plan an escape right now. They were herded down a wide corridor lined with holding cells, each one crammed with more pitiful souls. At the corridor's end stood an enormous gate that pulsed with electric currents. Beyond it, thunderous cheers and guttural chanting echoed. "Elijah!" Tal tugged at his sleeve gently, voice trembling. "We're going to the pit. Stay alive, no matter what." Elijah nodded, uncertain if it was a vow he could keep. Suddenly the gates parted, and a wave of heat and noise rushed in. They were thrust into a circular arena with stands that towered overhead in multiple tiers. Thousands of Valkyrie spectators shrieked for violence. The sky above was tinted gold by the massive sun, Solaris, looming overhead. "This day's entertainment," boomed a loudspeaker, "brought to you by Overlord Krail of the Valkyrie Dominion." A hush spread across the stands as a single figure emerged on the opposite side of the arena. Clad in scaled armor etched with swirling designs, Her shoulders draped in a cloak of black spikes, stood a tall female with slate-gray skin. Unlike the others, her eyes were vibrant gold, as if molten metal swam in her irises. Karen. Elijah didn't know it yet, but she was the Dominion's champion, rumored to have never lost a fight. Karen's gaze swept the line of new slaves, her lips curled with mild disdain. One after another, the new slaves were shoved forward. Each was handed a crude weapon, a spear with a dull edge or a rusted short sword. Elijah found himself gripping a battered staff, half the length splintered. Great, he thought, I'm supposed to fight a super warrior with a broken stick? Karen raised a hand, signaling. The arena gates slammed shut. Then, with predatory grace, she charged the first unfortunate soul. In a blur of motion, the new slave was disarmed, knocked unconscious by a savage blow. Blood stained the sand. The crowd roared for more. Elijah's heart pounded. The NASA training manual never covered anything remotely like this. Another prisoner, a reptilian alien, lunged at Karen. She sidestepped effortlessly, ramming an armored elbow into the creature's throat. It collapsed, gasping for air. Tal whimpered behind Elijah. No, this can't be the end. But Karen's unstoppable assault continued. She showed no mercy, yet oddly, she never outright killed her opponents. She just destroyed their will to fight, leaving them slumped on the ground. Finally, she set her sights on Elijah. He felt pinned by those golden eyes. The crowd hushed in anticipation. An alien champion versus a scrawny Terran out of his depth. Karen approached with slow, measured steps, the tip of her blade trailing along the sand, as if savoring the coming moment. Elijah tried to quell his panic. If he was going to survive, he'd have to rely on cunning. Maybe he could feign weakness, then strike, or exploit her confidence somehow. He adjusted his grip on the splintered staff, stepping forward to meet her. No point in dying on his knees. The entire arena went silent, eager to watch this final showdown. Chapter 1. Interactive moment. Liking the tension so far? If you're on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters. Share your guess. How will Elijah hold his own against Karen's unstoppable might? Drop a comment below. Chapter 2. The first spark of defiance. Elijah willed himself to steady his breathing. He could almost feel the eyes of the entire Valkyrie Dominion on him. Karen drew closer, each footstep swirling dust around her boots. He tried a desperate opening, a thrust with his staff aimed at her shoulder. She twisted her torso, letting the blow pass harmlessly by. Before he could recover, she seized the staff's end and yanked it from his grasp with a powerful twist of her wrist. Elijah stumbled forward, thrown off balance. To the crowd, it looked like the fight was already over. A wave of jeering laughter rippled through the stands. Karen effortlessly snapped the staff in two, then flung the pieces aside. Yet instead of delivering a knockout blow, she paused, studying Elijah. An odd flicker of curiosity crossed her face. This puny Terran was no threat, so why was he not begging for mercy or cowering? Elijah, still off balance, made a snap decision. He dove for the ground, scooping up a handful of sand and flung it upward at Karen's helmet. The dust cloud stung her eyes. She hissed, staggering back half a step, enough time for Elijah to scramble away. A murmur of surprise ran through the audience. Very few in the pit had even made Karen move backward. She blinked to clear her vision, eyes narrowing at Elijah's nerve. Quicker than thought, she lunged, aiming a kick at his midsection. He barely sidestepped, but her foot grazed his ribs with a force that sent him sprawling. Pain shot through his torso. It would have been easy to surrender, to let unconsciousness claim him. But something in Elijah refused. Maybe it was NASA training. Maybe it was the sheer stubbornness born of survival. He forced himself up, ignoring the bruise forming along his side. Karen stared at him intently, that molten gold gaze revealing a flicker of respect. The shift was subtle, but Elijah sensed it. And she expected him to whimper. He refused. She advanced again, blade raised. At the last second, Elijah ducked, and this time he seized her bracer, pulling himself around behind her. In that instant, he saw a weak link in the armor near her neck. The plating was thinner, but he had no weapon to exploit it. Instead, he tried to trip her. She didn't budge. Karen twisted with inhuman strength, throwing Elijah over her shoulder. He hit the sand with a dull thud, The crowd roared with bloodlust. They demanded a finishing blow. Karen's expression hardened. She stepped over Elijah's prone form, preparing to end it as she had with the others. Swiftly, brutally. But as she raised her blade, Elijah locked eyes with her. "I'm not here to kill you," he rasped. "And you're not going to kill me, are you?" She froze. For a moment that stretched an eternity, their gazes clashed. A hush fell. Even the breath of the crowd seemed to stop. Karen glanced at the stands where Overlord Krail watched, a bored expression on his face. She then turned back to Elijah. Slowly, she withdrew her sword, letting its tip hang. A wave of confusion flooded the arena. Why didn't she finish him? Overlord Krail leaned forward, annoyed. He signaled the announcer, who boomed, "Champion, finish the fight." But Karen stood still, the blade idle by her side. "He fights with cunning," she said at last, her voice resonant, yet quietly measured. "He does not cower." Krail's scowl deepened. The stands began chanting for blood. "Enough," Karen declared, turning abruptly and striding away from Elijah. She pointed at him once, as if marking him. "He is no threat. This one, I will keep my eye on." She exited the arena, leaving Elijah alive, battered but conscious. The gates swung open. Guards hurried onto the sand, rounding up the slaves. Some who were only lightly wounded were dragged away, others carried. Elijah felt the tip of a spear in his back, urging him to move or risk a lashing. Tal was among those shackled again. His eyes widened upon seeing Elijah still standing, no mortal injuries. "You survive," Tal whispered in awe. "The champion spares you." I guess so." Elijah coughed, ribs aching. "No idea why." All around, the crowd's jeers turned to confused muttering. To them, Karen's mercy was unprecedented. Overlord Krail stomped off with his retinue, furious at the champion's strange defiance. The rest of the day was a blur. Medical drones scanned the injured slaves. A half-cybernetic official recorded damage on a datapad. Meanwhile, Elijah's mind reeled with unanswered questions. Why spare him? Did she sense something about him? And more pressing, what fate awaited him now? Chapter 3, Among the Dust and Chains. In the bleak hours after the arena fight, Elijah found himself dragged back to a slave pen, a cramped enclosure of metal bars stacked one atop another like a giant beehive. This was the Thorn Barracks, a notorious holding area for pit fighters. It was rumored that those placed here were either marked for future battles or scheduled to be sold off to the Valkyrie's privileged classes. He collapsed onto a tattered mat, which was the only bedding in sight. Tal settled nearby, offering him a small flask of muddy water. The acrid smell suggested it was barely potable, but Elijah drank anyway, thirst overriding caution. "How bad?" Tal asked him, eyeing the bruises on Elijah's ribs. Elijah gingerly probed the injury. "Hurts like hell, but nothing broken." NASA's zero-gravity training had taught him how to handle impacts. Still, the Valkyrie champion's strike felt like being hit by a sledgehammer. A long moment passed. All around them, moans of pain and hushed whispers coalesced into a grim lullaby. Finally, Tal spoke again. "You confuse them. Karen never spares challengers." Elijah shrugged. She could have ended it. Instead, she walked away. I'm alive because she made a choice." Tal nodded. "A dangerous choice. Overlord Krail hates defiance. He might punish her. Or you." Elijah gazed through the bars. Outside, a dull red sun was setting behind jagged spires of rock, painting the horizon in blood hues. "Beautiful and terrifying," he thought. "I need to find a way out of here, Tal." Tal's features scrunched in disbelief. "Escape? Yeah, I'm not staying a slave on this planet. Somewhere out there must be a starship I can hijack, or a route that leads away from the Valkyrie city." Tal lowered his eyes. "You sound like many before you. None succeeded." A hush fell as footsteps approached. Two Valkyrie guards, their yellow eyes scanning the slave pen. One stepped forward, pressing a switch on the control panel. The gate slid open with a metallic clang. They pointed at Elijah. "Human, follow." Tal grabbed his sleeve in alarm. "No, Elijah!" A guard bashed Tal with a baton, sending him crumpling. Elijah, helpless to intervene, stood up warily, hands raised in surrender. He didn't want Tal hurt any further. "Don't worry," Elijah whispered to Tal. "I'll come back." The guards took him down a corridor, past more cells, and a pungent hallway where workers were disposing of arena casualties. The stench nearly made him retch. They finally arrived at a large chamber guarded by massive steel doors. Beyond them was an interior courtyard. Standing in the courtyard, wearing a more elaborate version of the black spiked cloak, was Karen. She faced away, observing some kind of monitor that displayed arena replays. Her posture was rigid, as though she was deep in thought. When the doors clanged shut, she turned. Her golden eyes fell on Elijah. The guards shoved him forward. "Elijah Graves," she said, as if testing his name on her tongue. It sounded foreign in her accent, but she seemed to relish the syllables. He squared his shoulders. "I don't know what you want with me, but thanks for not, killing me." She slowly circled him, inspecting every bruise, every trembling muscle. "You are no warrior, yet you fight with cunning. You amuse me." He bristled. "Am I just entertainment to you then?" Karen paused. "To them, yes. To me?" She trailed off, eyes flickering with an emotion Elijah couldn't decipher. Then she snapped back to her imperious tone. "You live because I allowed it. The Valkyrie are a proud race, but pride can breed stagnation. I sense something different about you, something they lack." Elijah tried to keep his voice steady. "If you want me to fight for you, forget it. I won't enslave others on your behalf." Karen's lips tightened. Bold words for a captive, and misguided. "I only want to see if you can survive the trials ahead." She glanced at the guards. "Take him away." Before Elijah could protest, the guards hauled him back out, crossing corridors in the opposite direction. This time, they brought him to a dimly lit workshop of sorts. Sparks flew from overhead welding rigs. The place smelled of burnt metal. An older Valkyrie mechanic, hunched but with strong arms, studied Elijah. "This the one you mentioned, champion?" the mechanic asked, speaking into a communicator. A crackle of Chiron's voice replied, "Yes, fit him with a translator device and a neural dampener." Elijah struggled. "Hold on, what?" The mechanic moved swiftly, pressing a small, disc-like device to Elijah's temple. A jolt of electricity made him gasp. His head spun, and then a flood of comprehensible words filled his ears. The Valkyrie language morphed into English. He realized the neural dampener was also there to limit his motor control if he tried anything, or it might cause seizures if he resisted. "Testing," said the mechanic, tapping a console. "You can understand me now?" Elijah glowered. "Yeah." "Good." The mechanic turned to the guard. "He's fitted. Send him back." Despite the translator, Elijah remained a prisoner, marched once again through labyrinthine corridors until the guards tossed him into a smaller cell, a private one. The door slammed, leaving him alone in near darkness. He collapsed onto a steel bench, heart pounding. Now he had a translator, but also a neural dampener that could disable him at any moment. What did Chiron really want? And could he exploit this new device to communicate better with others? Maybe plot an escape? Chapter 3, Interactive Moment. Wondering about Karen's true intentions? If you're enjoying the intrigue, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on whether Karen is friend or foe, and be sure to subscribe for the next chapter's revelations. Chapter 10. Buiram. Stirrings of hope, days passed in a blur of monotony. Elijah endured enforced isolation, a single cramped cell with a bench, a water dispenser, and the cold flicker of overhead lights. The only solace was that occasionally the mechanic or a guard would come by, and he'd glean fragments of conversation courtesy of the translator device. He learned more about the Valkyrie. They revered combat prowess above all else. Each clan had a champion, and Chiron wasn't just any champion. She was the high blade of Overlord Krail himself. She oversaw the pit, ensuring fresh slaves were tested or sold. Yet her act of sparing Elijah was causing disquiet among the Valkyrie nobility. In hushed tones, some guards said that Overlord Krail was furious that she defied the typical ritual. Others muttered that Karen's power was so absolute, even Krail hesitated to punish her directly. One evening, as Elijah dozed fitfully, the cell door hissed open. He jolted awake, fists clenched, expecting more guards. Instead, he found Chiron herself standing there, face unreadable under the dim light. "They speak of you," she said softly. "The Terran who survived. They wonder if you hold hidden strengths or if you're just cunning." Elijah stayed cautious. I'm nothing special, just a traveler in the wrong place. Her gaze flicked around the cell, then back to him. I've come to test your loyalty. He almost laughed. Loyalty? You're keeping me prisoner. The only reason I'm alive is because you allowed it. Now you want me to pledge myself to you or something? Her jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. In this world, survival often demands bending the knee. If you show me that you can be an asset, not just a curiosity, I can grant you freedoms. Elijah bristled. And if I refuse? You remain caged, or worse. Overlord Crail grows impatient. She hesitated, then added, Yet you might resist me anyway. I can see it in your eyes. He took a breath, choosing words carefully. I won't fight for you. I won't help enslave others. Karen's expression flickered. I see. She stepped closer, close enough that Elijah caught her scent, something metallic and musky, like ozone after lightning. You speak of slavery as if it's foreign, but your gaze tells me you've seen injustice before. Perhaps from your own kind. Elijah thought of Earth's history, the wars and oppression. Doesn't matter. Wrong is wrong. For a moment, the champion studied him with an odd intensity. Then she sighed, stepping back. Very well. I'll spare you more time to think. But know this, if you don't choose a side soon, Crail will, and you won't like his decision. She left as swiftly as she'd arrived. The cell door hissed shut, locking him back in the gloom. A surprise visitor. The next day, or what passed for day under Solaris 9's shifting suns, a guard shoved Tal into Elijah's cell. Tal stumbled, face bruised. He hurried to Elijah's side, relief and worry mingling in his eyes. They found me trying to bribe a guard, Tal confessed. I told you I'd try to survive. But now they punish me by throwing me in here with you. Elijah frowned. You're not hurt too badly, are you? Tal's trembling hands twitched. Could be worse. They say we both have a chance to earn reprieve if we do something in the pit. He glanced around warily. But no details. Maybe we fight again soon. Elijah cursed under his breath. He had no desire to amuse the Valkyrie with more bloodshed. We have to find another way. We can't keep playing by their rules. Tal's eyes gleamed with faint hope. You are cunning. Maybe there is a plan. Elijah began pacing the cell. I've got a translator device now. If I can get to the mechanic's station, maybe I can sabotage the neural dampeners or find a key to these cells. Then we gather other slaves, any who are willing, and stage an escape. But we'll need an actual route out of the Citadel and off this planet entirely. Tal gaped. Ambitious. But yes, if we do nothing, we die here. He squared his thin shoulders. I'll help. Their brainstorming was cut short by a clang. A new pair of guards marched in, activating the neural dampener. Elijah's muscles seized with searing pain. Tal cried out, dropping to his knees. The guards snapped shackles around their wrists before releasing the dampener's hold. Move, one guard barked. They were herded through twisting corridors once more. Elijah's mind reeled from the lingering agony. Tal limped beside him. Eventually, they emerged into a giant courtyard, overshadowed by imposing towers. Valkyrie aristocrats mingled on high balconies, some eating exotic fruits, others lazily pointing at the pitiful line of slaves below. In the center of the courtyard, Karen waited, flanked by robed attendants. She nodded toward Elijah, her expression unwavering. We have a visitor. A hush fell. From a side gateway, Overlord Crail himself arrived, towering in black ceremonial armor. His helmet bore spines that curled upward like horns. A trio of savage guard beasts padded behind him, each with jaws lined with serrated teeth. Crail's voice resonated across the courtyard. I have received word that you, Champion Karen, spare worthless creatures, that you hesitate in the arena. Is this Terran the cause of your rebellion? Karen bowed her head slightly. Overlord, I merely glean knowledge from him. He is cunning, but lacks raw power. Crail sneered, turning his glare on Elijah. Then we shall see if he's worth keeping alive. He will face a trial that will test more than his strength. Tal clutched Elijah's arm in dread. Elijah set his jaw. He sensed the wheels of fate turning. If he survived this trial, maybe he'd gain a chance to enact his plan. If he failed, he'd be just another nameless corpse in the sands of Solaris 9. Chapter 4. Interactive moment, the stakes are rising. Show your support by liking this chapter and commenting with your thoughts on Overlord Krail. Do you think Elijah can outwit him? Subscribe to see what happens in the pit next. Chapter 5. A Trial of Wits. That evening, Elijah found himself standing in an unfamiliar chamber. Smooth stone walls climbed high, torches set in sconces producing a flickering glow. The air was thick with incense that tickled his nose. In the center stood a circular dais with puzzling inscriptions etched into it, spirals and geometric shapes that radiated an otherworldly aura. Vokari guards surrounded the room, forming a ring of watchful eyes. Karen stood at Overlord Krail's side, her posture rigid. At the dais's edge, Tal hovered anxiously, forced to observe. "Behold," Krail proclaimed, indicating the dais, "the ancient test of Korthos. Many slaves have tried it, most perished, their minds consumed by illusions." He glared at Elijah. "Let us see if your cunning can save you from madness." Elijah took a tentative step onto the dais. Immediately, a strange vibration hummed under his feet. The inscriptions pulsed, glowing in rhythmic patterns. A sense of vertigo washed over him as the chamber seemed to warp and twist. Without warning, ghostly shapes danced at the periphery of his vision. He saw Earth, his old NASA training facility, the launching pad, the faces of co-workers. They flickered in and out, replaced by monstrous apparitions of Velkari warlords with spined helmets. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to panic. Krail's voice reverberated. "The illusions draw upon your deepest fears and regrets. If you cannot anchor yourself, they will break your mind." Elijah closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing. "Remember who you are, what you stand for." He recalled the safety checklists at NASA, how every step was methodical. Slowly, methodically, he reasserted his grip on reality. When he opened his eyes, he saw swirling holographic patterns in the air. Some formed fractal shapes, others coalesced into runes that sparkled with golden light. Instinct told him these runes might be manipulated. He reached out tentatively. His hand brushed a glowing symbol. It shifted position, as if on a puzzle board, slotting into place with a gentle chime. A portion of the illusions receded, revealing a faint path bridging to the dais's center. "You have to solve the puzzle," Karen murmured from behind Krail, her voice surprisingly gentler than usual. "Rearrange the runes to quell the illusions." Elijah took a steadying breath, ignoring Krail's fierce glare in the onlooking crowd. He recognized patterns reminiscent of Earth geometry, angles that matched known polygons, fractal expansions that mirrored the golden ratio. NASA had taught him more than physical discipline. He had studied advanced mathematics, cryptography, engineering. Now that knowledge was the key to survival. Piece by piece, he moved the glowing runes, aligning them in symmetrical forms. Each successful shift caused the illusions to quiet. Specters of Earth in monstrous shapes dissipated, replaced by a calm, swirling light. The dais beneath him grew less menacing. Yet the final set of runes resisted his commands. Their shapes flickered unpredictably, never staying in one spot. An invisible force pressed in on him, threatening to scramble his thoughts. He gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead. Then an unexpected memory surfaced, the concept of harmonic resonance from advanced quantum mechanics. Maybe these shifting runes required a delicate frequency alignment. He concentrated on the pattern of their flicker. There was a hidden beat, a silent cadence. One by one, in time with that pulse, he tapped each rune. They vibrated under his touch, then clicked together like puzzle pieces. A bright flash erupted, forcing him to shield his eyes. When it subsided, the illusions were gone. The dais lay silent, the runes perfectly aligned. The entire chamber hushed. Overlord Krail's face twisted in grudging astonishment. Karen's eyes flickered with a flash of something close to admiration. "Impossible," Krail snarled. "No slave, no human has ever solved the test of Korthos on the first attempt." Elijah exhaled slowly, stepping off the dais. "Guess there's a first time for everything." Krail glared, fists clenched. Then, to maintain his air of authority, he addressed the onlookers. "So be it. He passes. For now." He marched out, his guard beast snarling at his heels. As Krail departed, Karen approached Elijah, stopping just close enough that he could see the swirl of gold in her eyes. "You did well, Taryn. You proved your mind is as strong as your spirit." He met her gaze. Thanks for the heads up. That puzzle was intense. Her lips curled faintly. The illusions show your darkest anxieties. This planet feasts on fear, but you overcame it. She paused, a hint of conflict in her expression. Krail won't be satisfied. He'll set you against more trials, each one deadlier. Elijah nodded. I figured. Then he added almost gently, but why do you care? Karen's jaw tightened. Because she cut herself off, turning away abruptly. Return him to the pen, she commanded the guards. He's earned a temporary reprieve. Tal squeaked with relief, following as the guards led Elijah away. As they exited, Elijah couldn't help wondering what Karen was about to say, and why her eyes for a fleeting second had held sorrow. Chapter 6, Allies in the Shadows. In the days following Elijah's successful test, the Citadel buzzed with rumors. Some whispered that the human possessed hidden magic. Others claimed he was a herald of doom, bound to bring downfall to the Valkyrie. Overlord Krail's scorn only fueled such tales. His repeated demands to intensify Elijah's trials signaled he sensed a genuine threat. Elijah's relative freedom improved slightly. Instead of solitary confinement, he was allowed to roam the Thorn Barracks under strict guard. Tal accompanied him, discreetly helping him gather information from other slaves. Together they sought potential allies, those who might join a revolt if the opportunity arose. Late one evening, they were ushered into the workshop of the old Valkyrie mechanic who had initially fitted Elijah's translator. The mechanic, named Rofal, was middle-aged for a Valkyrie. His ridged forehead lined with scars and welding burns. Champion Chiron ordered me to ensure your gear is upgraded, Rofal said gruffly, turning to Elijah. She wants your neural dampener adjusted so it won't trigger accidentally in the pit. Elijah narrowed his eyes. She's protecting me? Rofal's lips twitched in a sarcastic smirk. She claims she wants a fair fight, or maybe she just wants to test you at full capacity. Hard to say. Tal hovered nearby, observing the cluttered workshop. Odd contraptions lined the walls, pieces of advanced weaponry, half-disassembled robotics, and strange orbs that hummed with stored energy. As Rofal worked on Elijah's device, he muttered, I've seen the champion defy Overlord Krail more than once. She's never gone this far, though. You must have impressed her. Elijah carefully asked, What do you think about Chiron? Rofal snorted, flipping a small welder in his hand. She's formidable, respected by many, but also rumored to have lost faith in the old ways. Some say she believes the Valkyrie reliance on slave labor is weakening them, stagnating progress. That will never grow if we keep oppressing others. Tal's eyes widened. She believes that? Are you certain? I said rumored, Rofal emphasized. No one dares speak openly. Krail keeps a tight leash on his subordinates, but Chiron has more freedom than most. If she has doubts, she's careful to hide them. Elijah felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Could Karen be an ally in secret? Or was she simply toying with him for her own ambition? Rofal finished adjusting the neural dampener. There, it won't fry your brain unless someone triggers it manually. Good luck. Elijah nodded thanks, mind spinning with possibilities. He and Tal made their way back through the corridors. As they passed an intersection, they saw several slaves carting supplies. One, a towering reptilian with orange scales, silently offered them a quick nod. Another, an avian female with metallic plumage, winked as they walked by, small gestures of solidarity. A secret meeting that same night, under the flickering torchlights of the Thorn Barracks courtyard, Elijah and Tal carefully approached a cramped storage chamber. Rofal had hinted they might find like-minded individuals there. Inside, huddled behind crates of old weapons, stood a ragged group of slaves from half a dozen species. They tensed when Elijah and Tal entered, but a wiry insectoid recognized Tal. You trust the Terran? It rasped. Tal nodded firmly. He's survived Chiron, overcame the illusions. He's different, and I vouch for him. Cautious acceptance spread among them. One battered alien, sporting a shattered left horn, stepped forward. We are the embers of rebellion, those who still believe we can escape, or at least damage the Valkyrie Dominion. Do you truly want to fight back, Terran? Elijah took a deep breath. I do, but not in a blind suicidal rush. We need a plan. The horned alien nodded. We have hidden fragments of technology, Scavenge from scrap starships. If we piece them together, we might power an old Freyot hauler, but the docking bay is heavily guarded. Tal listened intently. Karen's champion privileges might help Elijah gain access to restricted areas, if he can keep winning her favor. But that's a gamble, another hissed. What if she turns on him? Elijah grimaced. She might. I can't fully trust her. Still, I suspect she hates Overlord Krail more than she lets on. That might be our leverage. The rebels traded anxious glances. Finally, the horned alien spoke again. We're running out of time. A new shipment of slaves arrives in a week. Krail will want to demonstrate his power, likely with a mass execution in the arena. Elijah's jaw clenched. Then we need to move before that. Everyone gather what weapons or resources you can. We'll coordinate a signal. When the time is right, we break out. A hush of determined agreement filled the chamber. Despite the danger, a glimmer of hope sparked in their eyes. For many, it was the first time they'd believed in the possibility of freedom in years. Chapter 6. Interactive moment. Love the gathering of rebels and the sparks of a real plan? Hit like if you're cheering for the underdogs. Comment below. Do you think Karen will ultimately help or betray Elijah's cause? Subscribe to stay tuned for the brewing rebellion. Chapter 7. Between honor and deceit. The next morning, the Citadel was abuzz with preparations. An annual Valkyrie festival approached, an event where champions displayed feats of skill and Overlord Krail reveled in public adoration. Streets and corridors were adorned with banners woven from the hair of conquered species, a grim testament to the Dominion's brutality. Elijah wandered carefully, flanked by guards as usual, but with more leeway to observe. He noticed that each corridor was patrolled in shifts, leaving brief windows of inattention. The docking bays were locked down, but a cargo elevator at the southwestern tower offered potential access. He mentally filed away every detail for the upcoming revolt. Meanwhile, Karen trained in a private arena ring, a smaller counterpart to the Grand Pit. Here, she practiced advanced combat forms with an energy blade that crackled violet in the air. Her swift moves generated arcs of electricity with every slash. Elijah approached, the guards remaining outside. Karen paused mid-swing when she sensed him. You tread boldly, Terran, to come here unannounced. He folded his arms. You wanted me to be more than a cowering slave. So here I am. She regarded him, expression unreadable. Speak then. What do you want? Elijah hesitated. He couldn't just blurt out his rebellion plans. I want to understand why you spared me, and why you keep me alive. She lowered her blade, stepping closer. You puzzle me, Elijah Graves. You oppose the Dominion's cruelty, yet show no malice in your eyes. Most slaves who survive this long burn with hatred, but you burn with something else. Determination. He exhaled. So that's it? I entertain your curiosity? Her gaze flickered. Partially, I also suspect the Valkyrie way is incomplete. We fixate on physical dominance but neglect strategy, invention, empathy. Overlord Krail's tyranny has stifled new ideas. You bring the unknown, and that could shatter us or make us stronger. Elijah's heartbeat quickened. This was the closest Karen had come to criticizing the Dominion outright. So you think oppression is a dead end? She tensed, scanning for eavesdroppers. I won't confirm that. Not yet. But if you truly want to prove yourself, you will fight in tomorrow's festival. Show the Valkyrie a new form of strength. He realized she was giving him a platform to stand out, possibly to sow seeds of change, but also risking his life in front of the masses. What do I have to do? Her lips curved into a faint smirk. A champion must face beasts from beyond Solaris 9. Fierce creatures we import for spectacle. Survive that, and your legend grows. Fine, he said, but if I succeed, what do I get out of it? Her golden eyes blazed. Power over your own fate. I can request an audience with Krail, push for your recognition. With status, you might walk the Citadel freely. Elijah fought to keep his excitement hidden. That could be exactly the advantage he needed to aid the rebellion. All right, I'll fight your monsters. Just remember, I want my freedom, not more shackles. Karen studied him for a moment, then nodded. We shall see if you earn it. Night before the festival. Elijah met with Tal and the Embers of Rebellion in secrecy, verifying each detail of their plan. They aimed to strike when Overlord Krail was most distracted during the public festival. If Elijah survived his beast fight and gained partial freedom of movement, he could slip away to open the cargo elevator, letting the rebels access the docking bay. Once we reach the docking bay, we must override the security protocols, said the horned alien. Ruffle might help if we can persuade him or ensure Chiron keeps the guards busy. Tal nodded. And if all goes well, we board a freighter, blast our way out. Elijah placed a hand on Tal's shoulder. You said it yourself, no plan is certain. But we've got a shot, let's not waste it. A sense of camaraderie bound them. For many, this was the first glimmer of hope in years, or even decades. A tense interlude, just before dawn as Elijah tried to snatch a few hours of restless sleep, the cell door slid open. Chiron entered, alone, her face set in grim resolve. He sat up, heart racing. What is it? Krail's advisors suspect unrest. He's doubled the guard count, she said quietly. Be cautious, tomorrow. He swallowed. You're warning me? She stepped closer. I don't want you to die, not like this. Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable, a stark contrast to her battle-hardened aura. A swirl of conflicting emotions tore through Elijah. Was this genuine concern, or was she simply protecting her investment in a cunning Terran? I won't die, he managed. But if I make it through, I want more than just status. I want lives spared, starting with Tal and the others. Karen's eyes hardened slightly. You overreach, but I'll see what can be done. Survive first, then we'll talk. Before he could reply, she was gone, the door hissing shut behind her. Adrenaline thrummed through him. The festival would be a crucible, testing more than his bravery. It would decide the fate of every slave longing for freedom on Solaris 9. Chapter 8. The Festival of Fangs. The dawn brought an eerie calm over the citadel. Banners fluttered in dusty wind. Valkyrie citizens and lesser nobles flocked to the grand arena, hungry for spectacle. Drums thundered, horns blared, and the city brimmed with an undercurrent of violent anticipation. Elijah, escorted by 4 heavily armed guards, stepped onto the colossal arena floor. The stands rose like stone cliffs around him, tens of thousands of Valkyrie cheering for blood. High on an ornate dais sat Overlord Krail, flanked by his robed sycophants. Karen stood beside him, arms folded, scanning the crowd with a hawk's vigilance. Tal watched from behind a cage gate along with other slaves, heart pounding. Somewhere else in the stands, the embers of rebellion mingled, cloaked in stealth to avoid detection. They waited for Elijah's signal, or for the best moment to stir chaos. A hush fell as Overlord Krail raised a clawed hand. Valkyrie of Solaris 9, welcome to the Festival of Fangs. Let our might be proven yet again, for the galaxy to tremble at our feet. The crowd roared its approval. Krail's eyes flicked to Elijah. Behold, our curious Terran, a survivor of the pit and the illusions. Today he faces the beast from beyond. May his blood amuse us all. With a theatrical flourish, Krail signaled to a gate on the far side. Massive hydraulic locks groaned, releasing 2 monstrous creatures. They emerged in a flurry of dust. A hulking quadruped known as a Vraxodon, sporting an armored hide of bony plates. It had jaws that snapped with enough force to crack steel. A spidery abomination called a Silthcaller, with needle-like legs and a pulsating abdomen that glowed with electric pulses. Legend said its webs could fry victims alive. Elijah's pulse hammered, but he forced steady breaths. He had no advanced weapon, just a staff fitted with a short-range shock emitter, courtesy of Rofal's workshop. Better than nothing, he thought. The beast thundered across the sand. The Vraxodon roared, shaking the arena's walls. The Silthcaller clacked its spiked legs, each step gouging the ground. The crowd bellowed for carnage. Elijah moved, instincts honed from NASA training, telling him to avoid direct collisions. The Vraxodon charged like a rampaging rhino, bony plates glinting under the sun. Elijah rolled aside at the last second, staff whirring as he activated the shock emitter. He jabbed at the beast's flank. Sparks flew, but the creature's armor plates deflected most of the energy. From behind, the Silthcaller scuttled in, spitting a fine, crackling web of electric filaments. Elijah barely dove away, but a corner of the web singed his calf. Pain lanced through him. Stay mobile, he reminded himself. In the stands, Overlord Krail smirked. To him, this was a doomed effort. Karen, however, leaned forward, eyes keen. She watched every step Elijah took. Another charge from the Vraxidon forced Elijah to scramble. His staff's battery was limited. Repeated use would drain it quickly. He needed a plan. Spotting a cluster of rocky outcroppings near the arena wall, decorative stone meant to add flair, he darted toward them. The Vraxidon roared, bounding after him. Meanwhile, the Sylph Caller took a flank route, trying to corner Elijah. He raced around the boulders, letting the beasts funnel into each other's paths. With a guttural cry, the Vraxidon slammed into the rock formation. Cracks spider-webbed across the stone. For a fleeting moment, the Sylph Caller lost sight of Elijah and scuttled too close to the Vraxidon. Seizing the moment, Elijah sprinted forward and thrust his staff at the Sylph Caller's abdomen. Sparks erupted. The creature squealed in mechanical-like agony. The electric webbing recoiled, tangling the spidery legs. Enraged, the Sylph Caller lashed out, accidentally striking the Vraxidon's side. The Vraxidon, equally furious, bit down on the spidery limb, tearing it with savage force. Blood and ichor spilled onto the sand as the two monsters turned on each other in confusion and pain. The stands erupted in half-shocked, half-thrilled cheers. Krail sat up, intrigued. Elijah used the chaos to circle behind, scanning for a vital spot. The Vraxidon slammed its jaws into the Sylph Caller's thorax, ripping free a chunk of exoskeleton. The Sylph Caller retaliated by wrapping its crackling web around the Vraxidon's head. Both beasts shuddered violently, trapped in a lethal dance. Sensing an opening, Elijah leaped onto the Vraxidon's massive flank, wedging his staff between the bony plates. He triggered the shock emitter at maximum charge. The jolt surged through the beast's body, amplified by the Sylph Caller's electrified web. The resulting overload was spectacular. Both creatures convulsed, then collapsed into a steaming heap, stirring no more. A moment of stunned silence filled the arena. The Terran had just orchestrated the mutual destruction of two apex beasts without a single high-tech weapon. Then the crowd exploded in frenzied applause. Against all odds, they'd been entertained. Elijah staggered away from the monstrous carcasses, chest heaving. His staff sparked feebly, its emitter ruined by the overload. He couldn't believe he was still standing. Overlord Krail rose, forced to acknowledge what he'd witnessed. Impressive, Terran. Very impressive. His voice dripped with grudging respect. Karen signaled the guards to let Elijah approach the dais. He stepped forward, panting, battered but victorious. Krail regarded him with narrowed eyes. You have earned the right to live another day. Perhaps you do have some worth after all. The rebellion sparks. High above in the stands, the embers of rebellion took their cue. While the crowd was still in an uproar, they quietly dispersed to their assigned tasks. A battered reptilian slipped beneath a viewing platform, planting a small EMP device near the guard station. Another pair found their way to the southwestern tower, where the cargo elevator controls were housed. Tal, trembling with excitement, moved among the spectators, distributing small coded messages on data slips. Each slip read, "Prepare. We fly at dusk." Elijah bowed to Krail with mock deference. "I've done as you asked. Now my request." Krail waved a dismissive hand. "Speak it." Elijah's voice rang clear over the hush. "Spare the life of my friend, Tal, and grant me permission to walk the Citadel freely for the remainder of this festival. I must see your grand city to appreciate Velkari power." The crowd murmured. Karen observed with parted lips, almost as if she wanted to intervene. But she held her tongue, letting Krail decide. Overlord Krail scoffed. "That is all? You amuse me again, Terran. Fine. The cowering creature known as Tal shall live. For now, you shall have your limited freedom provided you wear a tracking band." A guard stepped forward with a thick metallic armband. Elijah didn't flinch as they locked it onto him. It hummed with hidden circuitry. He suspected it doubled as a kill switch if Krail willed it. Krail smirked. "Go, roam the Citadel. Marvel at our dominion, but do not tempt my patience. One step out of line, and your existence ends." Elijah bowed again, concealing his racing heartbeat. He had just gained the key advantage the rebellion needed. Chapter 8, Interactive Moment. Surprised by Elijah's victory? Show some love with a like. Place your bets in the comments. Will the plan to escape go smoothly or descend into chaos? Subscribe to follow the rebellion's next steps. Chapter 9, The Fall of Chains. As dust settled, Elijah walked the citadel's winding passages with caution, the newly attached tracking bands snug on his arm. Tal, freed from immediate danger, scurried by his side. The festival's noise still echoed behind them, but they were heading toward the southwestern tower, where the docking bays lay. The plan was for Elijah to help the Embers disable certain security locks from inside the tower, enabling the hidden group to storm the docking bay and seize a freighter. It was a delicate operation. One misstep, and Creel's kill switch would end Elijah on the spot. They reached a narrow, half-hidden corridor behind a row of supply crates. According to the stolen schematics, an access hatch here led to a lower maintenance deck. Rofel, the mechanic, had indicated that route would bypass some of the heavier guard patrols. Elijah paused, straining to hear footsteps. Nothing but distant echoes of cheering from the festival. "Let's move," he whispered. They descended into the maintenance deck, a cramped tunnel of pipes and cables. Dim emergency lights cast flickering shadows. Tal took the lead, scanning for guard presence. Twice they had to duck behind old machinery as a drone whirred by, scanning the area. Finally, they emerged into a control room, a compact station bristling with monitors and switchboards. A single-board Valkyrie technician dozed, his chin resting on his chest. He jolted awake at Elijah's approach, but Tal delivered a swift blow to the back of the technician's skull with a makeshift baton. The Valkyrie slumped unconscious. Elijah exhaled. That was close. They found the console that controlled cargo elevator access. Tapping the translator device, Elijah navigated the Valkyrie interface. A moment later, the southwestern tower's cargo locks clicked offline. He nodded at Tal. "We're in business. Let's hustle to the docking bay." Unexpected roadblock. Just as they stepped out of the control room, a squad of Valkyrie guards turned the corner, weapons raised. Their leader bellowed, "Halt!" They must have realized a security breach was in progress. Elijah's heart pounded. He and Tal had no real weapons, just a baton and cunning. But he wasn't about to surrender. Tensing, he looked for an escape route. Suddenly, from a side passage, Karen appeared. She blocked the guard's line of fire with her body and hissed, "Stand down!" The guards hesitated, confusion etched on their faces. Champion, the Terran he tampered with. "Stand down," Karen repeated, voice laced with authority. "He's under my orders. Anyone interfering answers to me." Elijah blinked. Was she covering for him, or simply exerting her own plan? The squad leader faltered, but Overlord Creel's tyranny still loomed large. By Overlord's command, the Terran's movement is limited. Karen's eyes flashed. "I outrank you in the field. Obey." Muttering among themselves, the guards backed away reluctantly. Karen watched them retreat, then turned to Elijah, voice low, "Go, now, before more come." He stared at her, a flood of conflicting emotions swirling. "Why are you helping me?" She hesitated. "Because slavery is not strength, and if you can give the Valkyrie a new path, or at least free those who suffer, so be it." Her expression darkened. "But Creel won't let you escape. Be ready." Elijah nodded, gratitude sparking. "Thank you." Before either could speak more, alarms blared in the distance. The Citadel had discovered the infiltration in earnest. Karen gestured at Tal. "Keep him safe." As the pair rushed off, Karen remained behind to misdirect the approaching reinforcements, her stance poised, blade in hand. Champion or traitor? Oh, Elijah thought, perhaps both. Docking bay chaos. Elijah and Tal emerged onto a high balcony overlooking the southwestern docking bay. Below them spread a scene of frantic activity. Rebels from the Embers, along with a ragtag group of newly freed slaves, clashed with Valkyrie soldiers among parked starships. Energy bolts lit the air, sparks showering from damaged hulls. At the far end, a battered freighter, an older model from some unknown star system, sat with its cargo ramp lowered. Rebels hurried to fire up the engines. Their window was small. If they didn't lift off soon, Creel would unleash the full might of the Citadel upon them. Elijah spotted the horned alien from the Embers, pinned behind a crate as a Valkyrie soldier rained plasma shots. Without hesitation, Elijah grabbed a fallen weapon, a short-range energy pulse rifle, and vaulted down the balcony. Rolling behind cover, he fired. The soldier dropped with a pained howl, clearing the path. Tal darted forward, urging the horned rebel. "To the freighter! Go!" Groups of slaves broke from cover, sprinting up the ramp. The docking bay was a cacophony of gunfire, sizzling arcs of plasma. Elijah took aim at a guard about to ambush an avian rebel. He squeezed the trigger, sending the guard sprawling. Another guard tried flanking from the right, but was tackled by a raging reptilian ally. "Move!" Elijah shouted over the roar. "We can't hold them forever." The rebels scrambled, some carrying wounded comrades. The engines of the freighter roared to life, thrusters spitting flame and shaking the platform. But a new squad of Valkyrie arrived from the upper walkway, unleashing a volley of high-intensity bolts that hammered the freighter's flank. The hull shuddered. Elijah's tracking band beeped ominously, as if Creole was about to trigger it. He grimaced. If Creole activated the kill switch, it would be over. Gotta move faster. He sprinted for the freighter ramp, covering the rebels' retreat with suppressive fire. "Tal, get on board!" Elijah yelled. The smaller alien nodded, racing up the loading ramp. More plasma shots scorched the ground around them. Suddenly, a monstrous shape leaped from the shadows. One of Creole's guard beasts, a lupine predator with bony ridges and spiked fangs, lunged at Elijah, jaws snapping. He stumbled back, rifle almost empty. The beast pounced, aiming to tear out his throat. Before it could strike, a blade of violet energy sliced through the air, severing the creature's head in a single stroke. Elijah gasped as the body collapsed, revealing Karen behind it, chest heaving. Her golden eyes flicked to him. "You truly mean to leave Solaris 9? He coughed, reeling from the near miss. "That's the plan." She nodded once as though acknowledging a truth she'd wrestled with. Then, in a rapid motion, she stabbed her energy blade into Elijah's tracking band, frying its circuitry. Sparks rained down his arm, the device shorted out, shutting down any chance of Creole's remote kill. "Go, don't look back," Karen said, her voice urgent. For a heartbeat, Elijah wanted to urge her to come. But the roar of approaching soldiers and the shriek of klaxons left no time. He sprinted up the ramp, yelling for the pilot to lift off. As the freighter rose, engines straining, he saw Chiron remain behind, facing an entire squad of Valkyrie. She stood poised like a defiant sentinel. Plasma bolts streaked toward her. Her blades spun in arcs of lethal artistry, deflecting shots. Then the view was lost as the hatch sealed. In the cockpit, rebels hastily programmed the freighter's controls. The horned alien was at the pilot's seat, sweat dripping from his ridged brow. "Coordinates set. We're punching through the atmosphere, hoping we don't get blasted by the Citadel's cannons." The entire craft shuddered as they accelerated upward. Overlord Creel's anti-air guns lit the twilight sky with beams of energy, some scoring glancing hits on the shields. The freighter groaned, rocking violently. Elijah braced himself, praying the old vessel would hold. "Come on, hold together." With a final roar of the engines, they broke through Solaris 9's dense air, emerging into the star-flecked vacuum. Behind them, the planet's swirling, gold and black visage receded, dotted by bursts of anti-air fire. But the rebels had done it, escaped the Citadel's clutches. Tal slumped against a bulkhead, tears of relief shining. Others cheered quietly or embraced wounded friends. Elijah sank to the deck, adrenaline draining, heart aching for the uncertain fate of the champion who had carved a path for them. Chapter 9. Interactive moment. Did that last-minute save from Karen blow your mind? Leave a like to honor the bravery of the champion. Comment your thoughts. Will Karen survive the backlash? And is this truly the end of Elijah's connection to Solaris 9? Subscribe for the final chapter and epilogue. Chapter 10. A Dawn of Freedom. The freighter soared through space, leaving Solaris 9 behind. Inside its cargo hold, the newly freed ex-slaves, crowded together in a chaotic mix of relief and apprehension. The Ember's makeshift medics tended to Anagaras using salvaged supplies. The mood was jubilant but tinged with the weight of the unknown future. Elijah paced the corridors, checking on each cluster of escapees. Many recognized him as the Terran who challenged the champion, solved the illusions, and orchestrated the rebellion. They offered him gratitude and cautious smiles. He found Tal by the cockpit, where the horned pilot was conferring with the others about navigation. "Any sign of pursuit?" Elijah asked, leaning against a console. The pilot shook his head. "The Citadel was in disarray. We might have a head start, but we can't be sure. Valkyrie ships could chase us once they regroup." Elijah inhaled. "We should plot a course to the nearest neutral starport or somewhere we can hide." Tal agreed. And we must decide how to unify these freed people. Many have no home to return to. A pang tugged at Elijah's chest. What about Earth? He had no idea how to get back. Maybe Earth was lost to him forever. But for now, these people were his responsibility. We'll head for the Bernath Rim, Elijah decided, recalling a snippet of star charts Rofal had shown him. It's rumored to be a safe haven for outlaws and refugees. We can regroup there. The pilot keyed in the coordinates, and the freighter's engines hummed as they adjusted course. A quiet hush settled among the crew, an unspoken acceptance that they were forging into the unknown together. A conversation in the aftermath hours. Into the flight, Tal approached Elijah, offering a small ration pack. You should eat. Elijah realized he was starving. He tore open the pack, chewing on something that tasted vaguely like dried fruit and meat combined. Thanks, he mumbled. They sat on a supply crate near the cargo hold, watching a few sleeping refugees sprawl on the floor. Some whispered stories in low voices, tales of captivity, lost loved ones, and the faint glimmer of hope these last days had brought. Tal finally spoke up. I keep thinking about Karen. She helped us, saved you. Why would someone so powerful betray her own people? Elijah stared at the floor. Maybe she realized the Valkyrie path is broken. Or maybe she saw that our fight was just. Will she be all right? Elijah closed his eyes, recalling the last glimpse of her, blades spinning against a wave of soldiers. I don't know, but if she lives, I suspect Overlord Krail will declare her a traitor. A heavy silence fell. Tal touched Elijah's shoulder gently. We owe her. Yeah, Elijah breathed. We do. The price of freedom, as the freighter Barnum. Freyhider's clock approached the next morning cycle. The rebels gathered in the hold. Elijah and the Ember's leaders addressed them, discussing immediate priorities, finding a safe port, securing food and water, and deciding their group's future. A reptilian refugee asked, Elijah, will you lead us? He hesitated, overwhelmed by the question. I'm no ruler. I'm just a pilot and an ex-astronaut who stumbled here. The horned alien stepped forward, voice firm. Your courage sparked this rebellion. You survived trials none of us could. Our liberation started with your defiance. We trust you. A murmur of agreement spread through the cargo hold. Elijah met their eyes, seeing in them a fragile hope. He swallowed. Then, I'll do my best to guide us. But every one of you has a say. We stand together. No more masters. Cheering erupted, subdued by the battered condition of many, but heartfelt nonetheless. And in that moment, Elijah felt the weight of leadership settling on his shoulders, an odd, solemn responsibility that was both daunting and inspiring. Epilogue. Embers beyond the sun. 3 weeks later. In a distant star system, a battered freighter touched down on a dusty outpost world. The air was thin, the sky tinged with turquoise from trace gases. No grand towers, no ruthless overlords, just ramshackle settlements of exiles, rogues, and wanderers. Elijah and Tal stepped down the boarding ramp onto solid ground. Around them, new friends from the Embers likewise disembarked, some limping, others supporting each other. They were all free now, uncertain but free. A local draped in scavenged robes approached. New arrivals? Welcome to Drenvar Station. Don't cause trouble and you might survive. Elijah nodded politely. Got it. We need supplies, a place to repair our ship. Maybe work? The robed figure laughed ruefully. You'll find all sorts here, guns for hire, black market traders, even a few decent folks. Good luck. And so began the next chapter for the ex-slaves of Solaris 9. Scattered across the outposts, they started building new lives. Some formed small communal groups, others bartered for lodging or took on odd jobs. The Embers tried to stay together, forging alliances with local smugglers who might offer them a measure of protection. Elijah spent his days coordinating repairs on the freighter, hoping to turn it into a vessel that could one day help free others from oppression. In quiet hours, he found himself gazing into the turquoise sky, remembering the swirling sands and golden suns of Solaris 9, and a pair of molten gold eyes that once looked at him with a mixture of scorn and reluctant admiration. He didn't know if Karen still lived. He didn't know if Overlord Krail would hunt them across the galaxy. But he did know one thing. The Dominion's grip on him was broken. He had done the impossible, survived, escaped, and help spark a new flame of rebellion. One afternoon, as he sat by a makeshift camp, smoothing out star charts he'd traded for, Tal approached, carefully carrying a small data disk. Elijah, this arrived through a back-channel courier. Elijah frowned. Who knows we're here? Tal shrugged. No idea, but the message was marked with an emblem, a black spike on a gold backdrop. Elijah's heart skipped. Karen's crest. He inserted the disk into a portable reader. Static hissed, and then a voice emerged. Soft, resolute. Basat Ranong. Elijah Graves. If you're seeing this, I've survived. I remain in the Citadel, under watch. Overlord Krail labels me a traitor, yet I endure. There are others here who question our ways. The Dominion is not unstoppable. I will do what I can to weaken Krail from within. If you ever find the strength and allies to return, Solaris 9 might welcome true change. Until then, the message ended abruptly, leaving Elijah staring at the flickering screen, heart pounding with mingled relief and longing. For a long time, he couldn't speak. At last, he exhaled, turning to Tal. She's alive and fighting in her own way. Tal managed a shaky smile. Maybe we'll see her again someday. Elijah looked out toward the horizon where the suns cast a pale glow over the dusty settlement. Someday, he echoed, gripping the disk tightly. In his chest burned a quiet determination. If the Volcari champion could stand against tyranny from the inside, he would stand against it from the outside. Together, they had broken their shackles on Solaris 9, but the mission had only just begun. With a battered freighter, a band of emboldened rebels, and a champion's distant spark, the Slavebreaker's journey was far from over.